In our exit interview series finale, we get to hear quotes from Stefan Noesen, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Andrei Svechnikov on a Thursday edition of Locked on Hurricanes.
You're Locked on Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked on Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I am the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I also write for the Calder Times that covers everything about the American Hockey League. I am also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked on Hurricanes. Got a very exciting episode for you today. As we said in the cold open, we're going to talk about Stefan Noesen, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Andrei Svechnikov to get their thoughts on the season and just what's coming up next for them in our exit interview series finale. All 4 parts done and done for. Thank you to everyone who's been checking those out over the last 4 days, and excited to be able to kind of put a little bow on the exit interviews from this past week. But before we get into all of that stuff, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So like I said, we're in our series finale. We're finishing up all the exit interviews from Saturday and Sunday from last week. We've basically caught parts 1 and 2 from Saturday. Yesterday's episode we did part 1 of day 2, and now today we get to wrap up with 3 interviews or 3 quotes that I found very, very interesting from the exit interviews from the Carolina Hurricanes when they met with media. So like I said, we're going to do Stefan Noesen, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Andrei Svechnikov give their thoughts. And so we're actually going to kick this episode off with Stefan Noesen, who had a really great season for the Hurricanes. Second year where he had consecutive, seasons where he played a lot of games, put him some points, and he's now going to be UFA after this season. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does next for his career. For the fact that he's an unrestricted free agent, where he just finished a contract with the Hurricanes. That was a 2-year, $1.25 million contract, where his AAV was $762,500. And like I said, in terms of just consecutive games, he played 78 games in the 22-23 season, getting 36 points and 13 goals. And he got 8 points in 15 playoff games last year. And then this past season, he had 37 points, most in his career in the NHL. And that was with 14 goals at career high. And he had 4 goals in 11 games within the playoffs. And it's good for Stefan Noesen because he's a former first round pick, which came at number 21 by the Ottawa Senators in the 2011 entry draft. Didn't really catch on with the Senators at all very much. He didn't really get a chance to play for them. He actually made his AHL debut with the Anaheim Ducks back in 24-15, where he saw 1 game that season and 1 game the next year. So in the span of 2 seasons, he played 2 total games, spending a lot of time in the American Hockey League and certain things like that. Finally caught on with the Ducks, and then New Jersey Devils, Pittsburgh Penguins, San Jose Sharks, and the Toronto Maple Leafs before he came over to the Carolina Hurricanes, where in 21-22 he only played 2 games in the NHL, but played 70 games in the American Hockey League with the Chicago Wolves and had a really great season for the Wolves in what would be their Calder Cup season. He had 48 goals for 85 points. And even in the playoffs, he had 9 goals for 25 points in 18 games. So Stefan Noesen knows how to score goals, and it's not surprising that he knows how to put up some points. And, he's tried to find a way to crack a lineup and stay in the NHL for a long time. And luckily, the last 2 seasons, he has with the Carolina Hurricanes. And the fact of, the Hurricanes paid him, less than $800,000. And he, created a niche, set for himself in terms of just his playing style. And if you listen to the last Storm report that Walt Ruff did, the Carolina Hurricanes, beat writer, they did a whole little episode having the guys talk about Brind'amour and just how much he means to them and to the team. And, they talked to Stefan Noesen, and he said the fact that Rod Brind'amour lets him play his game, and that's what's really important to him is the fact that you have a coach that will trust in your abilities and let you be you and not try to change it. That's the one thing that Steph really liked about it is the fact that Rod let him play his style of game, and you can see that his hockey IQ really shined. And that's what he says is one of his strengths is his hockey IQ, and you can see it for the fact you're talking a quote unquote bottom six player playing a lot of power play time and doing pretty well in the power play. We all seen that his net front presence is the big thing for the Hurricanes. That's something that the Hurricanes thrive on when he's on the power play, and even during the playoffs. He had 4 goals, and almost pretty much all of them were right in front of the net. So just being able to put that into perspective of how good he is just on that aspect where you don't really see a lot of bottom six guys being on the power play, but Steph Noesen, created a little bit of a, interesting dynamic of how he fits into the system. And that's, he's a guy that, Rod Brind'amour really relied on. And after the last couple of seasons he's had where he's definitely more than proved it. Now it's, what do you do for the Carolina Hurricanes? Do you find a way to bring him back? Hopefully they do because you need a guy like Stefan Noesen in your lineup. But you also know that, it's the first time he gets a chance to be an unrestricted free agent and see what free agency is like. And, when they asked him at his X interview, it's the fact that, for him, it's, he said about, what's next for him and just the interesting spot that he's in right now. So Stefan Noesen said, truthfully, I just think the free agency process is cool. I've never been a part of it. I hear it's stressful and there's a lot of digging at you. If we make it there, great. If we don't, we don't. That means that we figured it out here. And that's a very, very interesting take and a very way to look at it for him. And the fact that, Ralph even said it too, it's an interesting take on what's ahead of him. And it very much is so because you're thinking about the fact that now you're looking at someone who is testing for agency, and, what does that look like for him? Do you try to go for your market value and go somewhere else? Or, do you get your market value in Carolina and you stay here? Or do you figure out a deal that works out for you to where you get some, hopefully, longevity? Because when you think about Stefan Noesen, he's from Plano, Texas, and the fact that he was drafted back in 2011, he's 31 years old right now. So, he still has a way to make a decent, get a decent contract. The last, like I said, the last 2 seasons, he had 36 points and 36 in 2022-23 and 37 23-24. So you're talking 73 points in the last 2 seasons. That's really, really good for a guy like Stefan Noesen to be able to do something like that. And, if I'm the Hurricanes, I find a way to make it work to where you find a deal to keep him here. So you're talking to pay raise. Are you looking at $2.5 million for Stefan Noesen? It's very doable. I mean, it's a contract that could work. Are you giving him for 2 or 3 years? I think a 3-year deal could work. You just got done with 2, made less than $800,000. I think a $2 million, even 2.5 would be a really solid pay raise. And the fact that you keep him long term, I mean, the most you can go is probably 3, which is still pretty decent. But if you give him a 3-year deal, a nice little 3x9 or 3x12. Or however, 3x9, however that works out, 3x9. I think you can make it work. A 3-year, $9 million deal. You spread it over. You spend $3 million over the next 3 years. There you go. You got a solid guy who can give you good bottom 6 minutes. You can slide him up into the second line if you need to. He knows how to throw the body. He sticks up for his teammates. He's just some really good scraps the last couple of years in terms of sliding a spark and defending his guys. But also, like I said, he's really good on the power play. And Stefan Noesen even said himself on the Storm Report with Walt. His hockey IQ is what makes him really good. And you saw with the Chicago Wolves, he can put up points. He's not afraid to score goals and, do what he needs to do. And, just being able to get the chance with Carolina where you see consecutive long sets of games for him. Where before he wasn't really using 30 games here, 12 games here. Less than 2 in some places. Like the first 2 years of his career in the NHL, he only played 2 games with the Ducks. So he comes to Carolina, does his thing, and now put himself in a position where it's like, okay, you've done enough to where you could get a nice pay raise from your less than $800,000 to where you could get more, to where you're talking 2.5, maybe 3. And, you can give yourself a 3-4 year deal because you've done the work ethic, you've done the thing that needs to get it done. And, like Steph Noesen says, if they go to free agency, okay, that's cool. If they don't, that means they don't, and that something worked out here in Carolina. So if you're a Carolina Hurricanes fan, even if you're a Chicago Wolves fan who saw him win the Calder Cup with, the Wolves back in 2022, and still love seeing the fact with the Hurricanes, and now the fact that the Wolves and the Canes are realigned again, you still get to see Steph Noesen do his thing. So it's if hopefully it works out and they keep him here, because you kind of need a guy like that in your locker room, and Steph Noesen. So it'll be very interesting, but you can't blame the guy for being somewhat excited about free agency, because especially after having a career year, can't ask for much out of him, and the fact that he wants to try to see what type of deal he can get. But hopefully it's a deal that works to keep him here in Carolina. So talking about a guy next who doesn't really need to worry about a contract, but should be a little bit worried with how last year went, and that'll be in Jesperi Kotkaniemi. We'll talk about him here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Game Time is the authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices in the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in passes, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. The one thing I really like about the fact that with Game Time and the fact you get their last-minute ticket deals, you also get flash deals and zone deals as well, and the views from all seats in the venues. With their last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theaters, and so much more. With their flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And with their zone deals, specifically with that, all you have to do is you choose the section and let the Game Time app choose the seats for you. And talking about their seats, with the seat view option, you can get a panoramic view from your seats in the app before you buy, so you know where you're sitting, what your sight lines are before you even get to the event itself. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Welcome to the second segment of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said at the end of the segment, that after the first segment, we're going to talk about Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and it was definitely an interesting year for the 23-year-old Finn from Pori, Finland. And I mean, you kind of wish it was better for him. The season, before he had a career and got 18 goals, 25 assists for 43 points. Easily the best of his career in terms of that. And, even in the playoffs, he had 7 points in 15 games for the Hurricanes. Unfortunately, for the 23-24 season, did not really go his way. He played in 82 games last year. This season, he played in 79 games, but he only ended up with 12 goals and 27 points. And even in the playoffs, he had 1 point in 11 games, and that was an assist. And right now, Jesperi Kotkaniemi is now about set to begin his third season with his contract that he signed for 8 years, $38.56 million back in March of 2022. And this is actually the last year before his modified no-trade clause kicks in next year, which is a 10-team no-trade clause that spans from the 25-26 season through the 29-30 season. So right now the Hurricanes at $4.82 million. This is technically their last year where they have full control of what to do with Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And I know his contract has been a big discussion with a lot of people because, is there a team that's willing to take on the contract? Is there a way the team could probably buy him out? And I will say this. I know Elliot Freeman on 32 Thoughts brought up the fact about what would it look like for the Hurricanes if they did buy out Jesperi Kotkaniemi's contract. And he said on 32 Thoughts, not this last episode, but the episode last week, that the team would save $20 million over that span of the contract, because the way Jesperi Kotkaniemi's contract is laid out is there's no bonuses like we see with Pierre-Luc Dubois with the Kings. So it's not heavy laden with bonuses and everything else to where it kind of hurts the team more than it does if they do buy him out. And the fact with Jesperi is, instead of being like a 2/3 for what other guys might have, his is only set at 1/3. So when you look at his contract overall, so it is a 6-year contract, but you're having to stipulate this contract out over longer, which is, the buyout ratio is 1/3, but you're talking now the buyout length goes from, his the last 6 years of his contract now turns out into a buyout length of 12. And the fact that, the base salary of his contract on June 15th, the base salary remaining is $30.06 million. But if they, like I said, buy him out, the total cost goes down to $10.02 million, and you're saving over $20 million, and like $20,440,000 of Jesperi Kotkaniemi's contract. And now you're looking at 12 years of a buyout cost, which would turn into a cap hit for the Hurricanes of $835,000 over the next 12 seasons. So now you're looking at a less than $850,000 in terms of what his buyout looks like at 1/3. So you're going from over $30 million of a base on by June 15th to where now you're looking at a little over $10 million. You're under 10.1. So you're like a 10.06. 1/3 of the deal, and you're looking at $835,000 to the cap for the next 12 seasons, essentially. So you're looking at to where it starts for the 24-25 season, and that contract will not end off the cap for the Hurricanes until the end of the 2035-36 season. So yeah, like I said, you're looking at 12 years. So 35-36 is where the contract will end, and that $835,000 will drop off the books. Now, if the cap keeps going up, does $835,000 really matter? But knowing Tom Dunn and just knowing how the Hurricanes want to operate, you don't really want to have, even if it's less than $850,000, you don't really want that on your books until 2035, 36. So, and Jesperi Kotkaniemi is 23. So it's like, do you really want to just give up on him after, he didn't really have a great season this past year. But the season before, it's, in the regular season, he had 7 points in 15 games in the playoffs last year. Yes, it was his third season in Carolina. Not as great as his first year where he had, 12 goals and 29 points in 66 games. Kind of dropped off a little bit, even though he had more games. It's kind of a bad shake for a guy who was, picked third overall by the Montreal Canadiens in 2018 and has basically been playing in the NHL, right from the jump from 2018-19. So it's not like he really had any time to just, take a breather. He finished 6 seasons already. He's only 23. And, even for Jesperi, he talked about just what he had to say about his 23-24 season. And I'm going to have to paraphrase this because we don't want to swear on Locked On Hurricanes here, part of, what we have to do at the network. But essentially, pretty crappy overall. Tough year for me. I could have been a lot better. I'll just try to forget this year now and focus on the next one. And even Walt Ruff talked about it too. Teuvo Teravainen said the same thing last year. He needed to get better. And they're hoping KK does the same thing to where he does what basically you saw from Teuvo Teravainen this past year for 23-24. And you hope he does. Because like I said, he's only 23. He's had some different line mates this year. He bounced up and down the lineup. He thought he was supposed to be the second line center. Goes down to the fourth line, be as a center for a little bit. He played a lot of the fourth line wing in the playoffs. Got healthy scratched for the first time in like less than 2 weeks left in the season. He gets healthy scratch for the first time since coming to Carolina, and got healthy scratch a good number of games in a row. And you want it to work out for him, but it's just, what do you do when like your ice time goes down in the playoffs? You get healthy scratch multiple games in the regular season, and then what? It's there's a lot of different reasons for why the Hurricanes offer sheeted him from the Canadiens. I pay him $6 million for that, and then you look at the new contract that he got. He had a great season last year in year 2 of his deal, but I don't know. 4.8, and you're talking about now all the UFAs you got coming up, and talking about Martin Nietzsche. Do you want to keep him around, and how much is he going to be asking for? And then Don Waddell and said that the priority for the Hurricanes is looking for a 2C, which we'll talk about more for Friday's episode. Tomorrow for Friday's episode, but he wants money too. There's a lot of guys whose contracts are coming up, and it's like, do you want to try to find some more flexibility? And you look at that $4.8 million contract for Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Do you think you could find some leeway in, taking off $4 million, off his contract? Because he's making 4.8. He'll go down to like 835,000. So you're like 3.9 something overall. If you want to look at it, that's how much you're taking off your books that could go somewhere else. But for me, it's like, you don't really want to give up on him because he's only 23, and you want to try to get some consistency out of him. But like I said, too, this is technically the Hurricanes' last year of total team control where they can trade him before he goes into a 10-team no trade clause for the last 5 years of his deal. No, that's just 10 teams. I mean, you could still trade him if you really want to later on, if you start, when you get into the no trade, the modified no trade clause. You just try to send in a team that's with how the parameters of that list is. So, I mean, you could run it back with him for the half season and see what happens, and maybe, make a decision by the trade deadline. Do you move him on from somewhere else and figure it out from there, or you just, ride it out and see how he does this year and go on from there? So it's very interesting. And like I said, you always have the hope that guys have a bounce back year, because, Teuvo Teravainen said it last year, had a bounce back, season 23-24. You got to hope for the same thing for Jesperi. So it'll be very interesting. It's just, it's a tough break for a guy who got drafted so high with the Canadiens. Call him a bust, all that. He comes to Carolina, has an okay first year. Second year, he kind of kicks off, has a career year, and then this past season wasn't the greatest. Now it's like, okay, what's next? And the thing that everyone's talking about is, do you keep him? Do you trade him, or do you just buy him out? I don't know. It's a lot of different avenues, and there's going to be a lot of questions that Don Waddell and Steph have to figure out, and we go from there. But all you got to do is hope for the best for Jesperi. And, if he stays with Carolina, hopefully he has a bounce back year. But if not, I guess we'll see what Don Waddell in the front office does in terms of how to figure out what they want to do with that contract, either by a trade or buyout. It'll be very, very, very interesting come June 15th when that kind of like buyout period is allowed for teams to go do stuff like that. So we are going to go on to our last player of our exit interviews, which would be Andrei Svechnikov, and we'll talk about him and what he said here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. We streamline hiring with powerful tools that find you matched candidates. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed Data US. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy, because Indeed does the hard work for you. Indeed shows you candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your description immediately after you post it, so you can hire faster. And Indeed's hiring platform matches you with quality candidates instantly. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where you can only pay for applicants that meet your must-have requirements. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Once again, that is Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, at the end of the second segment, we are going to go into our last player interview of our exit interview series from this past weekend and over the last 4 episodes, and that is going to be with Mr. Svechnikov himself, Andrei Svechnikov. So an interesting year for Andrei. Started, you were kind of hoping to be ready for the regular season after tearing his ACL back in last March. Unfortunately, kind of had a slow start getting back into the year, missed 3 games, was able to come back, and then unfortunately got hurt playing on the West Coast road trip against the Winnipeg Jets, and then missed some more time later on in the year. So it was definitely a up and down season for Andrei Svechnikov in terms of the fact he could just not stay healthy. You're talking coming into the season injured, then getting injured twice in the regular season. But the thing is, though, in 59 games, he still did get 52 points. So all in all, how much were you really going to ask out of Andrei Svechnikov for the fact that he was able to find a way to do what he did? 19 goals, 33 assists for 52 points and 50. Didn't have him in last year's playoffs because he tore his ACL like a week after the trade deadline. Comes into this playoffs, he's actually healthy, and he does get 11 points in 11 playoff games. So that's 2 goals, 9 assists. You'll take that. You'll take 11 out of 11 for Andrei Svechnikov. And like I said, too, for the fact that you look at a plus 13, 52 points in 59 games, I don't know how much more you can really ask out of Andrei Svechnikov on a season like that. And that's with like I said, you miss some time to start the season, and then you get injured twice more. And, all credit to him for doing that. And the thing is, he's coming into year 4 of his 8-year, $62 million deal with a cap hit of an AAV of $7,750 that he signed back in August of 2021. Just like Jesperi Kotkaniemi, his modified no trade clause kicks in for the 25-26 season. And that's also a 10-team trade list that starts on January 1st, 2020. On July 1st, 2025. So next July, when the new free agency and re-sign period kicks in next year, he has to submit a 10-team no trade for his modified no trade clause. So that's actually, he will be, like I said, in his last year of the Hurricanes being able to trade him if they want to. Obviously, they're not. It's just, that's just what his contract parameters look like, is the fact that, he has a modified, kicks in next July. But the Hurricanes aren't going to get rid of him. You don't get rid of a power forward like that, and the guy like Andrei Svechnikov, where, you drafted him 2nd overall in the 2018 draft. He's 24 years old. The guy is amazing. We all know he is. 21-22 season at 69 points in 78 games. He's going to have a career year soon. Just last year ultimately just ended early because of ACL. This year had some ups and downs, but nothing more you can ask out of Andrei Svechnikov. And even for him, coming into 24-25, he's excited at the fact that you come into a season fully healthy. And Andrei said, this year, I felt like I learned something and tried to grow every game and every day. And that's all you can really ask out of him. And that's the thing that Rod Brind'amour has been saying, since the start of training camp, before the 23-24 season started. One game at a time, get plus 1% better every day. That's all you can ask for. And that's the thing that Andrei said. Like, he just learned and, tried to figure out the season as it went on. Because, what more can you do? What more can you do when, like I said, you start late, you get injured twice, and you're still able to put up a great season overall, and had a great playoff. Your first healthy playoff in a while, and it was a good one for him. And now you're looking at 24-25. Okay, there's no rehab over the summer. There's no, will he be back? Will he be ready for opening night? Barring anything happening, knock on wood, you should see Andrei Svechnikov ready to go for training camp this fall and being ready for the home opener or the opening game if the Hurricanes start at home or however you want to do it. Game 1 of next season for 24-25, Andrei Svechnikov will be healthy and ready to go. And that's all you really ask for is the fact that you get him for hopefully all 82 games next year, and you get one of the most dynamic power forwards in the game right now who's physical, score goals, make great plays, and isn't afraid to throw a body around. Will I expect, could we see a great year of Andrei Svechnikov, maybe a career year? I could probably see that. He had 30 goals, 39 assists for 69 points in the 21-22 season. He did it in 78 games, and this year, 52 points and 59. I don't know how much more you can ask out of him for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a, 70-plus season for Andrei Svechnikov next year. And it'll just be interesting to see where they slot him in because through the playoffs, he was on that first line with Aho and Gensel for the most of the 2024 playoffs. He spent most of the regular season this year on the second line. So I'm really curious to see where Rod Brind'amour slots Andrei, but he's coming in the next season healthy, and you got to be excited to see what happens next for him. And if he gets rolling, has a great earlier season, takes him to the playoffs, who knows? You could hopefully see a deeper playoff run for the Carolina Hurricanes. But it'll be definitely exciting to see Andrei back, fully healthy, first game of the season, and hopefully just ride the wave of what he can do next year for the Carolina Hurricanes. But that will wrap up this Thursday episode. Hope everyone enjoyed the exit interview series that we did this week. I know it was last weekend, and want to go through, just see what the guys said, want to give some thoughts on what they discussed and stuff like that. And I know tomorrow for Friday's show, we are going to go over the Don Waddell Rod Brind'amour press conference from this past Monday. I know pretty much everyone's already talked about it and stuff like that. And, I've written about it myself over at the Hockey Writers, but I kind of want to bring it to the podcast side. Bring it here to Locked On Hurricanes, let you know my overall thoughts as well, and just kind of get the idea of like, okay, this is, what Don Waddell and Rod Brind'amour are looking at for the offseason this year and what they're hoping for in the 24-25 season. But that'll be Friday's episode. I hope you guys really enjoy that one when it does come out. But for this episode, thank you to the everydayer such as yourself for making this your first listen of the day as always. I hope, like I said, I hope everyone really enjoyed this exit interview series. This was a lot of fun to do. Just kind of, going through all that, getting some reactions, getting some thoughts, and, seeing what the guys said in their media availability over the past weekend. But if you want to keep up with anything more past this series and just Hurricane stuff in general, you can follow me at OneTrueZach on X. You can follow the podcast at LO_Hurricanes. If you click the links in my bio, you can find where to find all my articles at the Hockey Writers, along with newsletters and paid content over there as well. If you want to follow my American Hockey League content, where I write for the American Hockey League and the AHL, you can do that at the Calder Times. If you want to listen or watch on YouTube of my other podcast, the Surgecast, there's links for all that. For Locked On Hurricanes in general, for this show, if you are listening to this, you already know where to go, but the link tree will have links to this podcast. And if you leave a 5-star rating, I really greatly appreciate it because it'll help build the show. And if you leave a review on your 5-star rating, I might just read on the podcast. And on the YouTube side of things, make sure to hit subscribe. Click the bell to make sure you turn on all notifications so you don't miss the show, and click the thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate that. And also, too, make sure to share with other Hurricanes fans so hopefully they become everydayers just like you, because we are over 860 subscribers right now. The goal is to get to 1,000, and if we do, I might just do something special for you guys. But I hope everyone has a great rest of their Thursday, and until next time, as always, let's go Canes.